Hey, this is Roopa Ambekar.
Hi, I'm Vikas.
If you are in the business of beauty,
If you want to listen to some great conversations that will help you run your business,
this is a podcast you don't want to miss.
make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to us. Now, how many years did it take for you to build that overnight success?
You and I have an opportunity to put the microphone in front of leaders from the industry that don't get asked hard questions.
Who this is not for is those get rich quick folks.
What do you think the industry is avoiding?
You may get rich, but it's get rich, build success, long term, drip by drip, step by step.
Hey, this is Roopa Ambekar, and if you are in the business of beauty, this is a podcast you don't want to miss. Like, subscribe, and follow us, and you will love being a part of our community. So tell me, Vic, how did you get here?
Oh man. The funny, so we just finished Pro Beauty Delhi yesterday, right? And then it's easy, it's the biggest show in the country. You get a lot of plaudits about what you've built and how great this is for the community and that. But that nearly really didn't happen because when I first came to India, 2009, having been doing global events, for a while, thinking I'll just turn up. I was in my early 30s then, thinking this will be easy. Come to India, bring world-class stuff. What's going to be difficult about becoming rich within 18 months and delivering really good stuff. That's one of the hardest things I think I've ever done. I remember when I also got to launch our first Pro Beauty show in Greater Noida 2012. You were there too.
Yeah.
I remember literally 2 to 3 weeks before the show. I'd just come back from Delhi, but wife, kids picked me up, and I was crying in the car because I had two of the, we had a small show, but two of the biggest clients backed out, and I was like, I'm broken. Like this place has broken me, and I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, I just want to go home, go back to UK because this place breaks me. And we got on, did the show. And there's one line that has always stood with me and always will, and it's like Lata Ma'am. So Lata Mon from Bounce founder. She was like, when we did our first show, she goes, "You've got this, right? Just keep going. What you're doing is needed." And it was lines like that from mentors like that from when I was so new to the country, to the industry. Really kept going, and it has been the toughest journey, and it's easy to celebrate what we've built, but it broke me up many steps.
When I saw you and the show the first time, I was thrilled that I'm entering India and something like this, which I'm used to in the US, is coming to India.
Yeah.
Like I felt I've timed myself right. Little did we know, years down the line, this is going to be this way.
Yep. You were there at the first show as well.
Yeah.
I know.
60 people or something, right?
Oh well,
60 people in the
not even. It wasn't even that. I think it was at 15 people, and then we had to, get everyone off the stage, put round table together, think, right, the event's not working, just do that. And, we had a nice round table discussion about literally 12, 15.
But you had the key people in the industry then, and you have the key people in the industry now.
Yeah.
That's consistent.
Yeah, and I think that's been part of the vision, which is like, how do we bring the community, how do we do something for the community? The big picture stuff, because we think big, and we think about, the long game, then the short game looks after itself, but you've got to get through the short game.
True. So, how I got started? I was a great artist when I entered the industry. I was so confident with my skills. I got into education. I wanted to teach. And then I worked with Paul Mitchell as the dean of their academies. It was a big project. And I thought running a business of that scale will have equipped me to be able to come to India and start something. And I started great, right? I started with everything that I know. And within about a couple of months of getting into the country and getting into construction of a space, after not ever having worked here, blood tears, because I knew that I was taken advantage of. And I could tell that I didn't have the expertise, and the person in front of me knew that, about how to build the space. Of course, I know what I want in aesthetics, but not how to get the space started. And I had 3 consultants who I paid, I think, a few too many Indian rupees that wasn't deserving. But and who gave me some wrong advice as well, because they thought there was an international brand that's coming to
Yeah,
India,
yeah.
while I was trying to create a brand name for myself, not knowing that being an expert in the beauty business doesn't really give you a license to own a business until you understood the crux of the running a business. So I struggled there. I struggled there for 2 years because all of the budget that I had to get my brand up, I had used that up and then some more just to construct my first location and get the contracts going in place. By the time we got to opening our beauty school and the salon at the same time, 5,000 square foot space in India, we ran out of money. I was tired and scared because I had done a lot of mistakes by the time we opened our spa. My confidence was down on the ground. Um, and the worst part was we had nothing for marketing. And at that time, it felt fine. It didn't feel like I need a lot of money for marketing or I needed to market a lot. It felt like I have this great place. People are just going to walk right in and they're going to tell everybody else about it because I'm an expert. But going from being a beauty expert to a business owner, that took some pain. So, and if I remember correctly, about 8, 9 months later, by the time I figured out hiring the right set of people, training them day and night, I walk in I think it was Wednesday morning or something, we opened the salon. My entire staff was poached. No one turned up. Yeah, that happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so we shut down the salon. So I'm calling frantically and trying to get people to help me send staff from Northeast here, there, whatever. And then I decided that I'm going to have a system in place where I'm constantly educating people. So if you leave me, it's your loss, not mine. Right? So that was a learning.
Mm.
So beauty industry is about glamour, show, glitz, success stories. It's all look and feel. And our podcast is a different story.
Yeah, what we're doing, obviously, it's about decoding behind the glam, because it's easy to look from the outside. It looks so, you've got the Bollywood stuff, you've got the fashion stuff, so it looks so exciting, but it's a tough journey. And what we're going to do is we're going to really break that down, for our audience.
Right.
And how we're going to do that? We're going to invite people from around the world who are in this industry and who've had that long journey to overnight success. So we're going to hear those stories that it takes a decade plus to really build something, and that's what we're here for, to really kind of interview people who've built something through the grit, the grime, and share those stories, with our audience. Right. So walk me back to the moment you decided to build the business. Where were you? What were you thinking? So tell me the story behind,
My son was a year old, and I brought him home so that all my family could see him. And while I was here, it was December of, I believe, 2010. Um, a friend of mine from Boston, who was an investor, was also here in India. And they were investing in a wellness company. And he was like, can you join me for this conversation? Because I would like to understand them a little more, maybe from an expert perspective. So I went with him just as a casual afternoon, meeting an entrepreneur in our world in India. And at that meeting, that person offered 16% stake in his company for me to come and join him. Um, of course, it was exciting to even just get the offer, but I was a mom with a year old in my hand with a lot of medical challenges. So I went back to the US and I seriously thought about it. And I was talking to a friend of mine at dinner in my house saying, I was in India and this happened. The person, he's a dentist, and he's like, you know what? You should have your own brand. You shouldn't work for anyone else. Yeah, I took that advice. I took that advice because at that time, after working for a few years in the industry and gaining the expertise within the salon spa area as well as education, I kind of felt that I had an all round experience and that India just was opening up to wellness and beauty. And I saw the opportunity, I saw their facilities. I knew that I could add value as an expert, of course, but as a business owner, yes, it was a new journey, new experience. But that moment when I thought that I could start something and add value and give it my name was exciting.
Yeah.
It was a great time.
Right.
2010.
We always talk about the highs, but talk me through to some of the lows, in that journey. So when you decided to build your own brand, come here, start something new, tell me about some of the lows, and what that cost you. Whether it's like money,
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. So fast forward, I was in India with my 4-year-old, came in with 4 suitcases, settled within about a couple of months, and started the business. It took me about a year to get it off the ground, get it constructed, and launch the business. And then it took me 3 more years just to get to understand what I was about in this country and what my brand was going to be. One of the things that I suffered a lot was being a perfectionist and wanting everything exactly the way I needed it to be. People would come in and visit our brand and want to take our franchise. They would come in and set up a meeting with a check in their hand, and I would say I'm not ready for it because I didn't think that I had uh, something unique to offer, and I didn't understand the franchise business as much as I do today. And it was an overwhelming experience for me. But that feeling of I'm not ready yet kept holding me back. So that was one of the things that I learned. I also learned that you could be great at what you do if you don't understand P&L, if you don't understand having a basic conversation with your accountant, being able to give your chartered accountant the necessary documents they need to help you figure out your finances, it could hurt you. And I kept funding my business for almost 3 to 3.5 years after I started the brand. And that drained me financially, also put a lot of strain on my relationships as well. But over 5 to 6 years into the game, I still was one location. We were doing great at the one location, but I was so scared to start the next one because I didn't know if I was going to lose control of the quality of service. And I was holding on to that so much. And Kumarawel from Naturals,
Yep.
once we were just laughing, talking about something, and he said, 70% is perfection, Roopa. You can move on and do more things. I took it home and I was like, okay, what does it mean? 70% is perfection. Means that progress is key. That's what he tried to tell you is that, yeah, you want to attain perfection. It's a moving target, but you have to keep progressing along the way. And that's what he really meant by 70% is perfection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did start. I think within a year after that, I started 2 more salons and 3 academy locations. They all happened, but not before some of the pain that I had to go through as a beginner.
Yeah. 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 Right. Part of that is like having the grit, right? And it's like something we talk about a lot, and almost like you've got to have the grit, to achieve success. So without trying to romanticize it, what does grit look like, on an everyday level? So give me a moment of like, a Tuesday afternoon or something where you're like, right, this is where I've really got to dig deep, and show grit, if I want to keep going.
On a normal good day, on a normal good Tuesday afternoon, this is how my life used to look like. I had the salon full of clients who I was walking around talking and meeting and understanding them. I had the team to work with in terms of formulations and whatnot. I was very hands-on as a business owner. And I had the academy and the courses that were going on simultaneously and working with the teachers and students. That was happening. And then on the phone with the vendors, negotiating, pulling your hair apart for many other reasons, and trying to chase supplies, for God's sake, right? You have this and you have that, and you don't have that, and you can't do this and you can't do that sort of stuff. And in between all of this, there was a child sitting in the office, back office, trying to do his homework or driving him for a soccer game, right? That was my typical good day, by the way. And that's the kind of grit that you need for a woman entrepreneur, I'd say, in a field of beauty and wellness where you have so much going on in the day and there's so many things that you are doing and you still feel great walking out of it because you've met so many people, you've done so much through the day, all wearing heels,
Yeah.
and looking good while you're at it.
Mm.
Yeah.
When did you get to the point of, so we talk about community and industry, and you kind of think, like, I'm part of that kind of industry setup, but when did you get to the point of thinking, you know what, I've got to go this alone, right? If I'm going to build something, there's no one to rely on, right? This is where you've got to dig deep, and it's about me and what I'm going to do to build on this. So, I mean, tell me about some of those moments that, you realized, you're in it alone when you're building this.
End of the year, when you had to balance sheets and when you had to figure out how the next year is going to look like and make those decisions about how much, I mean, you want to progress a lot. You're ambitious about your business, about yourself. But to be able to sit down and look at how your business is done in the past and to practically put a blueprint for the next coming years, it always was the worst time for me. I didn't always like how the year went until I learned that it's again, progress is key. That was one place where you really feel alone. You know, you don't have someone next to you, especially if you don't have a partner in business, to say, "Hey, we can do this," or "No, let's push it this way," or "You're thinking right," or maybe you're not thinking so right. Right? There's no one to tell you that this way or that way. You're making decisions and you're figuring out as you go, and you're entirely bearing the consequences of every decision that you're making. So you have no one to complain to, and it's hard to be very happy with yourself when your numbers don't look that great, regardless of how well the brand is doing. And we're getting awards, our people are getting recognized. I'm getting recognized in the industry. At that time, I was a part of the government body, the BWSSC. People in the industry know me as an expert. I was enjoying all that, but I come back home and my books weren't looking that great. They weren't representing all the success that I was enjoying physically within the industry. And the other part of it was people in the industry knew me, but I had a retail business. It took me a long time to understand that I need to be favorites of the customers for me to bring home the kind of money that I'm looking to make. So the shift in the mindset as well, like, I've got to be customer focused in terms of marketing and getting to know them and work with the PR agency or whatever it is to do to be in front of people who come into our salon. So that was another, aha moment for me.
Yeah.
To like, okay, it's great to be in the industry and contribute and be appreciated for expertise, but that doesn't,
Doesn't pay
bring
the
home
bills.
money. Yeah.
Doesn't pay the bills.
So that took me some years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need the little time that you have that you can give. You have to be so greedy and selfish about where you spend that time.
Yeah.
And not be sorry about it.
It's a tough balance, trying to get that, you've got on one level, like a level of success because you're getting recognized, you're getting appreciated, and it's easy to get carried away with that. But then you said you come back home and you're like sometimes hand to mouth, you're not being able to pay the bills, you've got family, you've got the kids, you've got schooling, all that. It's a real hard balance, and you don't want to go the other side where you're pure money minded and you lose your creativity and your passion and what you're trying to achieve. So that's a really hard balance, I think, to get right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one first of a month, one of the months, because our industry goes in cycles, we make a lot of money some months and not so. I remember one month, I did not want to ask my family money because I've been doing that for a while, dipping into my savings, dipping into all our savings. And I didn't have enough to pay my people. It was later in the night. My nose started bleeding. I thought, oh, maybe I, hurt myself or something like that. And it bled for like 4 hours. And then the doctor told me when I went to the hospital that you're going through a stress issue. I'm like, what do you mean stress? You're having an anxiety. I'm like, really? And then I'm like, why am I anxious? Because tomorrow is payday.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
I had never experienced that in my life,
Yeah.
right? Like that you would actually physically bleed.
Yes, it's a metaphor we talk about, but you got the real reality of it. Yeah,
Yeah, it was one time, but I'll never forget that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you sat across most founders than anyone in the industry ever has. What is a pattern that you keep seeing in the ones that made it?
I think first of all, it's like we're trying to define, what make it is, because everyone has their own definition of success, and I think some of the key founders that keep going and going, we all, there's an imposter syndrome that drives, right? So those that really, I think you never really arrive, right? It's easy to celebrate that they said awards and we've got this recognition. Um, but yeah, like I said, I've been in it like about 15 years in this industry, and then the ones that, there are players that have been around 20 years, really working hard. Um, I think the kind of pattern you see is you've got to have a real true conviction of who you are and what you're trying to build, right? So, and that and building on that clarity over time is what I see. Those that they're more successful than others who come and go because they're trying to make the quick buck and do the quick thing, and they're like, oh, it's the new trend. Let's just come in. We've got some money. Let's just blow it up really quick. The ones that that have been around longest, and then they're getting the recognition, they're getting the reputation. They built trust, credibility. They know their niche, right? So they know who they are. They know what they stand for. And we've got a lot of different whether it's in the Indian market or globally. I think knowing who you are, what you stand for, whilst having the flexibility to keep adapting, pivoting, when things don't work out, that is what I see. So the people that really build on long-term success.
So name the founder that failed, not for the show, but for us. And what did they do or not do that caused them the failure?
Yeah, I'm not going to name names specifically on this one, but a couple of big ones come to name. One is a big global color brand. Another one is one of India's kind of distributor icons. What I see in both of them that there's a phase where it just didn't work was, I think when you lose your core and you lose your identity, and you kind of forget why you're on that journey. I think that's where I've seen some real big failures, because you forget why you started something, who you're there for, who you're serving, what you're trying to build, and then you just, when you lose your identity and your core, that I think is the kind of biggest reasons for really failing, right? And because you forget who you're serving, right? And why you built what you're building, right? And I think that's the ethos of whatever anyone's trying to create in whatever industry. I think you've really got to hold on to that, right?
Sure.
And you've got to have that real conviction to say, right, this is what we're doing, this is what I'm building, and go with it. And the
Right.
ones that get caught up in the limelight, whether it's commercial or fame, etc., or we've got to scale and we've got to go from being a professional brand to a consumer brand, and or retail, or we're getting mesmerized because there's so much money flowing through, and
Be distracted.
that distraction, and it's easy to get caught in the lights, and I think that's where I've seen some of the biggest, saddest crashes, in a brand, in individual journeys. That's for me and that's what even I learned. Like, it's just learning, just reminding oneself, what are you here for? What's your core? What's your vision? And then getting away from the noise to remember and refocus, and then go again.
Mm. You and I have an opportunity to put the microphone in front of leaders from the industry that don't get asked hard questions. What do you think the industry is avoiding?
I mean, some of some of the toughest questions I think, and right, what we're building, with the podcast, is not the kind of glamorizing and eulogizing people. It really is trying to get to the kind of crux, of who you are, what you built, and why you built it. And I think we want to ask the tough questions, and some of it is like, who you're serving, right? Who you in this for? Because for me, the me game and is, that doesn't serve the industry and that doesn't serve the community. So it's really about who you're doing this for. How are you improving the industry and the community, right? And I think it's really getting to that heart of who are you serving, because we work in a great industry, like the beauty and wellness industry. Like when you really get into it, it actually does transform lives. Like, you've got your examples of, when you're behind the chair, you're working with people, you can transform the looks, right? And then you get that inner beauty coming out, you build that confidence. So and I've seen it as well, I've heard many stories, we really transform people's lives when we get to the heart of it. It's not just the kind of like looks and, the superficial stuff. There is a real opportunity to impact lives. And for me, the hard question is, do you remember that, right? Do you remember why you started it? Do you know the impact? Do you remember the impact? And what are you doing to make sure that you deliver on that, consistently for people at the end of the day?
Yeah. After the last couple of days and all the discussions with the HBF people, one of the tough questions that we're asking the little guys, the one salon owner and everything, the big guys got it all. They've got the money, they've got the resources, and they've got backups when things don't work. Because if you deploy all of your ideas and put budgets on it, and if it didn't work, you're in a bad shape. But they're not. One of the questions yesterday, I ended up asking, which I didn't even think through. I was in a flow. Was, so how many of you are single salon owners? And there were 80% of them were single salon owners. And I'm like, okay, who's got your back?
Yeah.
The second I said that in English, they all put their hand down, and Ashok just stood up, and I think it touched him or it touched them. They're like, we got to come together and we got to bring quality of education to the little guys, single salons and professionals. We've got to bring, resources that is not a. So it just went off. So we went out 20 minutes after.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing this with you yesterday. That what happened yesterday. But I think the hard question also could be, what are we not, when when our business reaches a certain extent, certain level, and we are a certain authority within the industry, how are we helping the rest of us grow? Even if that means that you're charging for it. No one's asking anything for free.
Yeah.
Or we're not in that contributing, making money out of contribution mindset. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
We're not asking that. I wouldn't talk about brand owners because I think they do their part. I would want to talk about the organized sector to see how can you even, okay, this is one thing that comes in my mind, right? Even to say, when I interview somebody as an organized brand, my expectation of the person that's going to join me is this, and this. Because when an organized brand interviews like that, the expectation is set that I've got to have a certification, I've got to have these basic 5 things, and the word spreads. That's increasing quality without you having to do anything for free. So I feel like that's not happening.
Yeah, and it's not. There's no pathway for the ones that are starting, the smaller ones. There's no pathway. There's no mentorship. There's especially in markets like this, like India. It's just that pathway's not there. Globally, there's better systems, there's better processes, there's better understanding. There's a bit more regulation. But the markets that are not as developed, that pathway is where community comes together. And I think that, and we forget that we're a community because when we get so stuck up in looking after ourselves and our businesses, because it's tough, right? Running a business is tough. And that's where you need that ecosystem, whether it's domestic, global, to really, inspire people through the tough times.
And the other tough question also is, why are you not educating your team as much as you should? And that, came about yesterday. And I had prepared the answer for that one. I had thought through that. And I was able to, I guess, convince these guys that if you don't educate your people constantly, it's not like you'll do once in a while or to the one person. You educate your entire team constantly, every Tuesday, every Monday, whatever the day it is, that they are developing their skills on a daily basis. The only way you can differentiate yourself from anybody else in the market is by giving your customer a cheaper service. And over a period of time, the only differentiator is your cost of service, and it keeps coming down, and you will shut down.
Yep. It's a race to the bottom. I mean,
If you don't continuously educate your team, you will shut down eventually.
yeah.
It's the truth.
Yep.
It's how they all get to, I can't continue running my
That's-
business anymore.
Yeah, but that's because we've got, again, that lack of mentorship, and we just get into the discount game. So the discount game, whatever sector you're in, brand or salon,
Yeah, the price war.
it's the price war, and it's always a race to the bottom.
Yeah. So we did that yesterday.
Yeah.
So we are having this conversation about business. Why beauty and wellness when we can expand the same conversation to any other vertical of business?
Sure. For me, I mean, I've worked in many industries, right, and I've worked across, where it's finance and and there's like tech and consulting and many different places. I mean, the last 14, 15 years, there's been a lot of work within this community, and the reason we're focusing on this community, I've seen seeing the ins and outs of it across different countries. It's a really special community, actually. It's given me a lot. So, I mean, even in terms of, the exposure and, where I am, I owe a lot to the community, right? And you really get into it, and, whether you're going to a barber shop or a salon, or you talk to a brand, whether it's, anywhere, you really get to the essence of, people, and people just really wanting to do their best to look after others, and you're really in the kind of coal face of it when you're in this community, because, many others, you're quite, you're sitting in a corporate office, you're looking at whether it's PowerPoint or whatever, you're just kind of disconnected from the end goal and the end reality. But this community really looks at how it impacts people at the end of the day, right? That is your indirect connect with your customer, right? And your customer is the ones that you want to transform. You want to make them look good. You want to make them look good from the inside and the outside, and it's really transformative. If you really get to the crux of what we do in the beauty and wellness community. So that's why that's why I want to do this, because it's there's a lot of amazing stuff and a lot of amazing people in the industry, and being able to get them to share their stories and inspire, and also to just remind people this is what we're here for and this is what we do. Because when you get caught in the kind of rat race and the struggle, you forget at core what you're doing and the impact you have. So I think it's it's a great opportunity to have these conversations to kind of really inspire people and get back to basics.
Yeah, and also being a $30 billion industry in
That's
India,
just here. Yeah,
80% of it is unorganized. That means that they're all business owners, single salon business owners, who are their main employees. They themselves run their businesses with very limited knowledge of how to run the business and not just cut hair. So maybe this podcast is something that they can follow through and pick up a few things and organize themselves within their own space.
Yeah.
They shut down between 5 and 7 years.
Yeah. Or even you get 5 years is tough.
Well, they struggle for 5 years because they don't let go. See, something that should have been closed off in a year or two extends to 5 years, and that's where you put all your money and lose all your peace. And then when you can't, because a lot of business owners have a lot of grit, and they can follow through their dreams until they hurt themselves and then decide this isn't for me. That's between 5 and 7.
Yeah, but even getting to 5, most like 90+% don't even get to 5.
Right.
So it's
because the financial resources you're draining if you couldn't figure out what's working for you, or the people drain. Either ways.
People drain is the biggest for me.
Right.
It's not even that. I think sometimes there are a lot of people that should not be business owners, honestly. Because it's a tough gig.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just easier to have a career, have a job, less stress. less to like look less responsibilities
Yeah.
from a work point of view. But everyone, and I think we're in a world where everyone's like, do your own thing, like be on, that, and that's also why we're building the podcast, because it's also not just about, encouraging everyone to be an entrepreneur. It's like encouraging people also not to be entrepreneurs, and just sometimes, giving them the reality of like, this is a tough gig, right? And you gotta, I encourage, if you want to do it, but no, it's a tough gig. But also realize it may not be for you. And sometimes there's no harm in just saying, you know what, did it, tried it, wrote the book about it, and I'm going back to work.
Wrote the book about it. I like that.
So I'm just going back to work. I'm going to do my thing.
Wrote the book about all these things that didn't work.
Yeah, I live my dream and it's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah. So if I go back in my life, I track back the 15 years, 20 years now of my business journey. When I got offered that 16% in a large business with multi-locations, I had no idea what a privilege and honor that was that someone was willing to open up that level of partnership for someone that met in 2 hours. And I had no idea the significance of that. If I go back, there is so much I could have learned about the Indian business by being a part of that business. There is I would have made money from day one versus having to pull my own funds and deplete them and be discouraged and lose my self-esteem before I started to work on them. I look at the advantages of what was offered to me as a job or a partnership, and I look at what prevailed. And you're right. Some people sometimes need to get that advice that this is a better option for you versus having to put your own name on something. There's a cost to putting your name on something if you don't know how to run it.
Yeah, and I remember now I tell my son this, like, because he's like, oh, I don't want to work for anyone and I want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, that's a tough gig and, not for everyone. And I remember when I was in my early 20s and back in the UK, and I wanted to get into when you're a guy in the early 20s, like running a restaurant, bar, club thing is like the thing to think of and do. And then me and friends were like, oh, we got to do this. And I remember meeting the founder of Yo Sushi, like a long time back. And I was like, right, oh, I need a mentor. I want to talk to you about this. And he was like, in like a minute, it was like, my advice to you, go work in a restaurant, right? And at that time, pissed me off. Because I'm like, I want to get proper advice, guidance, mentoring. Don't go tell me to work in, a restaurant in the back end and all that. But, it took me time to really understand that's what you got to do. If you really, it's easy to fall into the glam and the razzmatazz of running a business and a glam business. But the reality is, it's goddamn hard work. And actually, so now even I tell, Adi, my son, is go do the hard work and go work for someone else, right? Learn on their money, learn on their time, learn rather than burning your energy, your time, your money, making mistakes that have already been made, right? Learn off those that are willing to support you and guide you. And that's the best trick. So even, talking to, some of the kind of senior hairdressers the last couple of days, right? They're like, it's just, you've got to work behind the chair, right? And you've got to realize it's a privilege to work behind the chair. And even getting to that stage, you want to do the hard work, which is sweeping floors, doing the washes and doing that hard work before you get the privilege of working on clients, right? It's, there's a level of too much entitlement to like do that.
It builds humility.
Yeah, you've got to get that, right? Before you get the privilege of actually doing the real work.
And for the ones that think it's easier to own a business so that you don't have employers sitting on your head telling you what to do, it's a hard wake-up call. Because when you don't have someone telling you what to do, you have to figure out what you need to do, and it has to be right every single time for you not to make mistakes and lose your business. So it's harder to have to not have a boss and to have to self-direct yourself than to have a boss and be directed when you're learning.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, I'm my own boss. I like to be my own boss. Great.
Yeah.
Make sure you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can be your own boss, and that will work.
Yeah. And most times, being your own boss doesn't pay the bills, honestly. So.
Well said.
Yeah. Who it's also for, right, for me is, because the last few years, I remember, last few years, it's funny, talking to brands, and and even salons like just recently, people don't get how important, for example, pricing is, right? They don't know how to build, their pricing, to make a profitable business. So who this is also for, and I've seen many brands, and they're like, oh, we want to go to this market, we want to go to that market, and then now that I've got the kind of nuance of it, I'm like, you're not built to export, you're not built to scale. And they're like, why not? I'm like, because your pricing's wrong, right? So it's really also for that founder or those entrepreneurs that think we've got a great idea, great, we found a gap in the market, we want to build something. You want to know, have you built something for yourself and for your local customers, or have you really built something to scale? Because I've seen so many now founders get it wrong, whether you're in the kind of salon business or the brand builders. It's just not going to work, and it's not going to work because you built it wrong from the get-go, right? So it's also, this is for them to look at, how do you build something properly from not just the idea, but how do you really get that idea to be commercially viable and commercially viable in a long term across multiple channels.
Yeah. I also think that this is a great show for people who've started a business, put in their investments, and have learned a little, have lost a little, and now are a little scared about how, making mistakes. Because, in your business journey, you get to a point, at some point in the initial phases, where you're afraid to make bigger decisions because you now have learned the cost of making those decisions, the fancy ones, the one that everyone can see. We go towards some of those decisions that cost us, but it looks good.
Yeah.
It looks like I know what I'm doing. To the family and the friends and the industry colleagues.
Yeah.
I think somewhere between the first few years, before 7 years of business, if they're struggling, if they're having a mindset to want to learn and listen and observe, this would be a great place for them to come and listen to great people, great stories, take tips, tools that's offered to them, and see how they can apply it within their own businesses. And maybe even connect with the community of entrepreneurs around them. If watching our show, if you are able to conjure up the guts to even get out and find a mentor for yourself, we think we are a success.
Yeah, that's hard, man, because finding a mentor is a really tough gig. But if you get a good mentor, that's transformative, right? I mean, building on what you're saying, who this is not for is one, those get rich quick folks, right? Because and that's why we're building this, because for me it's that frustration of, there's so much content out there saying you can become a millionaire overnight, you do this, you invest, here's a great idea. That is not reality, and the only ones that are doing that are the kind of those online influencers that are selling you their courses to get rich. They're getting rich quick, right? On the back of other people's hard-earned money.
Right.
So this is not a get rich quick. This is a, you may get rich, but it's get rich, build success, long term, drip by drip, step by step. So this is for them, and then also the other thing, you're talking about the kind of those the more cautious. Can we make these big decisions? And if you're risk averse and you don't like making crazy, gutsy, pivotal decisions, this ain't for you, right? This is not for you, because being an entrepreneur, you've got to make some real crazy decisions at times. And sometimes, and I have been there as well, sometimes you've got to lose it all to make it, right? And you've got to make decisions that everyone else is like, what are you doing? You've got something solid, something, some real foundations you're building on. Why risk it? And I'm like, sometimes to get to the next level, you got to risk it all.
Right.
And that is lonely, tough, and
scary.
It's bleak, scary. Yeah.
And if you're a very good artist, a hairdresser who has a following, a beautician who's fully booked for multiple weeks, and you feel like you're ready to take the next step, but you want to educate yourself before you go out and do that, I think we're a great show.
Yeah.
Because you got it, but you also don't want to just jump into things, and you want to learn, you want to absorb.
Yeah.
Podcast.
It's also about giving like you said, because you don't always have the mentorships, you don't always have anyone
Right.
having your back. So part of this is to say, like, we've got your back,
Yeah.
and we're going to give you the guidance. We're going to get you the advice to know that you're not. It's lonely there.
Yeah.
We're going to try and deal with some of that business loneliness by
Right.
giving you stories, from. There'll be mentors out there you look up to, you thinking, wow, I wish we could be like that. They're so lucky. We're going to break down that luck to say,
Right.
that ain't luck. That's a lot of goddamn hard work.
Decode that luck.
Decode that stuff, yeah. To say that actually, wow, okay, to get there,
Yeah.
okay,
You're
I'm not
right.
the only one going through that.
Right. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
When I finally decided to do my MBA, after owning my business for a number of years and knowing that there's a whole side to business operations and finance that I know nothing about, and I have no shame in agreeing and accepting to that today, because I've gone through it and I've learned it and I know now what I didn't know then. The most important part about all of this learning journey is that you have to find the right mentor. And it can be many mentors. It doesn't have to be the one mentor that has it all figured out. You might want a specific mentor for something that you've been aspiring to do, and you want to pick them based on the success they've had in that area that you're trying to develop. You got to do your homework a little and pick the right mentor, or you could be going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
glam industry can get you,
Yeah.
right? And the wrong mentor not only can derail you from where you're going, but it also will look like that uphill battle that you're going through is never going to end.
Yeah.
Because you're not resolving anything, you're adding more to your problem, and you're thinking you're finding a solution. It's sort of like a mirage having a wrong mentor.
Yeah. I think you're spot on about that one mentor and that one guru, may not be the one. You've got to have
multiple
across different areas that you're trying to work on. Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right.
that always teaches you everyone has limitations. Every successful human being that we all look up to have limitations in other areas of life that's reality.
Yeah.
And that's humbling, actually.
Yeah.
It's humbling to know that no one's a superhero.
Yes. Yeah.
No one's a superhero. And if you're great at one place, you might not be so great at the others.
Yeah.
You might be good at hiding it.
Tell me some of the people you would want to bring onto the show to inspire others. Why this show is there to inspire others and deal with some of that loneliness in running a business. And we want to bring names on to the show to really kind of break that down, right? So tell me some of the names that you'd like to kind of interview and decode their stories for the benefit of our audience. I'd like to bring on, like someone like Bobby Brown, because she's really built something, and it's, that's a name that will live on beyond herself, and that takes something. Mira Kulkarni, who's the founder of Forest Essentials, and that's a great single mom story from to build, and now is becoming a global name as well. And to build that from India, phenomenal. There's Jane Winwood, who's founder of Delogica. Again, you got a lot of hardworking women that have really built something, and they're 40 years old this year.
Yeah.
And then there's someone like Sasha Mascolo, who's obviously the founder's daughter. But really look at how is she taking that on to the next level, like a legacy brand. And that's another hard one. Because sometimes it goes with, it dies with the founder, but it's like, how do you keep continuing the story?
Some of the names that I'm going to mention right now are names that I've really been inspired by in the industry. One of them is Frederick Vakai and Win Claybaugh, Beth Minardi, and Patrick Cameron. Who doesn't know Patrick Cameron, right? And I'd love to know his story, and I'd love to be able to talk to him.
Yeah, he's a character. He's an absolute character.
And Falguni Nayak from NECA. I think it's a great story, and I think everyone should hear about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Overspent on building, no marketing, staff poached, service mix, customer TG, negotiating with the vendor, team training. Revenues, profits, EBITDA. I'd never heard the word EBITDA.
In what? Oh, EBITDA.
EBITDA.
Okay.
It's like, what's that? But when I when I thought of scaling up my business, the salon spa definitely, which was the easier one to scale compared to the institute, I hired a team of CAs. They were into venture fund and they were into helping brands like ours find funding for
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
percentage. It was a nerve-wracking couple of meetings with them because I had no idea how to answer what they had to ask. And they knew that. I think they're used to people coming in and saying, "What?
Yeah.
No, no. Deer with the headlight." They sat me down in coffee shops and taught me so much that I learned about going out and asking for an investor. After that meeting, the 2, 3 meetings, they're like, "You don't need money. If you can do this right, your franchises will fund your entire growth. We can get you there. Forget the money. Let's give you a strategy to build yourself without having to share your
Yeah.
business with anybody." It was the best advice I got from them. And we never hired them. They came in to be hired, but they ended up giving me the best advice for my business at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could happen too.
Yeah.
Get lucky. Because some brands, if they have worked hard on figuring out their operations, their marketing, and their education, there's enough and more that they can do and build themselves organically. Of course, today, I think that if you're not on social media and if you're not trying to claim your share on social media, no matter how much of a working formula you have, it's going to fail. People are making decisions within seconds to decide who they want to go with. 3 seconds precisely, by the way.
Yeah, but
It's the scroll.
I know, but it's also, you've got to look at your short term, long term. So I think it's going back to core. So it's like, are you building a good service? Or if you're in the service industry, you can follow that, scroll, scroll, scroll. But then you've also got customers that are scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. So they're going to go from shop to shop to shop. So you've got to know what your identity is as a business, right?
Right.
So if you're building something strong and you're building like quality service,
Yeah.
people will come back if because
Yeah.
they want someone they can trust.
Yeah.
So I think it's also stepping back to like not get caught in today's fast consumer world,
Right.
unless that is who you are. So I
I think
think
social media is a part of the
it's
strategy.
part of it.
It's
Don't
not the
get
strategy.
don't
Yeah.
get caught up in that social media
Yeah.
game because I also think that that's a
Yeah.
tricky one to navigate.
Yeah.
Where you got to stop to realize who you are, who you're serving, what is your TG.
Right.
So I think that's also critical, and you use it as a tool, not as your strategy. And it's just there to facilitate, but don't let it run your business.
True. Absolutely. When you have everything working for you, when you have your people doing amazing work, yes, you can show it off.
Yeah.
But to be able to show off great work, you need to have everything
Yep.
put together.
Yeah.
So you're right. And then you get your shit together.
Yeah.
Then you can show it off.
Yeah.
But don't forget to show it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. That's the other thing I see with a lot of like what we call senior artists around the industry, like senior experts with your hair, makeup. I remember once, working with one of the UK's top, and we were bringing him to India, Armand. And I looked at his socials, and I'm like, is he really that good? He's got like 7,000 followers. So I had to double check with people in the industry, like, how good is he? Because we've got people that have got hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, and then they're like, that he's brilliant. He's doing the G20 summit, he's doing Oscars, he's doing all this stuff, he does fashion, and but he just doesn't have time or the patience to just do the social media game.
Right.
And then you realize actually that's why it's a trap, because
True.
there's those that just do the social media game and that's who they are, but are they any good at their job?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Well, some of you influencers who are great at doing techniques and who figured out the 4 or 5 things that work for you, and you're mesmerizing as a personality, and you're able to attract a lot of attention on social media. I think that next level is for you to figure out how to sustain that. It's great to go viral once in a blue moon and then have these amazing followers and think you made it, right? And some brands and some payment that comes in your way. But don't stop there. If you're an influencer and you're serious about it and you think you're good at it, follow through and become fundamentally good in what you
Yes.
do and figure out the crux of the business of being a social media influencer, because there's a whole lot of science to that as well.
Yeah, there's that. And I think you just got to you've got, for me, substance always matters.
Right.
Substance is the most important thing for the long game.
Right.
In the short game, you can come in, there's a fad, there's a trend, you can do whatever and blow up quickly. But if you want to build something long term, and that's what sometimes people are just happy doing the short term 1, 2 year, 3 year thing, become famous, make it rich quick or make it famous quick. But if you're really trying to do it for the long term, you're gonna build substance and credibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Because your followers can leave as quickly as they came.
Yeah.
If you're not interesting, or if you don't continue to be interesting.
Yeah. And then the question we're really trying to answer in this is, whenever interviewing anyone, is how many years did it take for you to build that overnight success? And that's the crux of what we're really building with the podcast.
Right. And one more thing that we want to pay attention to our podcast is we want to put in a lot of time and effort to bring in content that's extremely relevant to what you're doing in the industry. And we want to be very picky and choosy about the people that are going to come in and influence you through our 1 hour podcast. More importantly, we want to focus on the tips and tools that you can take home and use it and practically it making a difference for you. So we definitely will focus on that and make sure that it's not just a chitty chat for an hour that we had a great time or we had a great inspiring story, but how can you take something home and make a difference for yourself? That's also something that's very dear to us, and we definitely want to deliver on that through our podcast.
Yeah, and that's also why we've got a great episode 1 coming up, with Rodney Cutler and Reginald Laws. And the reason we chose those guys, like, as you know, we wanted to go global first. We wanted to talk to some top people in their community and the industry. And, Rodney and Reginald are, some of the best in America. Also, got global names as well. And I think what's exciting is, with, Reginald, who's, a hardcore north of England kind of character, built his success there first, then went to the US to kind of start again and, build the education system and create some, real great artists from his, from Rockstar Communication, for example. He's built successful businesses, turning over millions, building talent, and then you've got Rodney, who's, he, the guy that just runs, New York Fashion Week. So, and everyone goes to him for his trends, his opinions on what's happening, in the kind of like the hairdressing, the fashion community, and then what we're going to decode is really, how many years did it take to get to that kind of overnight success? Because that was not easy.
And the best part is these two guys are so humbling and will sit down and patiently tell you exactly how they did it and what worked for them and what owners and leaders should focus on. Because right now they're in that position where they're developing the next generation of talent. And that's a lot of information that owners can take away and implement in their salons, in their chains, to be able to see the difference in the generation that's coming about to groom their own brands.
Yeah.
So
also, what's great about them is as hairdressers, they get the numbers. Like, they know their numbers, right? So getting that balance of creativity and business, like, that is hard, right? And I think they've done, they've shown, and in the podcast you'll get some of that, is they've really got that nailed down, and like, when we chatted Rodney and he was like, right, quick, I've got to get to my salon in 20 minutes and we've got to, he goes, I've got like, 121 booked in today, and he knows his numbers, and that is like phenomenal, and he knows which team member's doing what and which customers coming in, and I think what you said about humbling as well, like, he was pushing us saying, right, I've got to get to my, my first client's at 10 o'clock. And, and him at his position as one of the leading hairdressers was like, the customer is king, right? And I've got to be there to serve him. And it wasn't like he was dealing with some celebrity this time. And he's done that. He was like, I've got my customer. My customer is, who I'm there to serve, no matter how long I've been in, whatever reputation I've built. He's there on time. And he goes, that matters. So that was amazing.
And that discipline matters. And you'll see from both of them the kind of people they are. As much as success they've received and they've enjoyed, they do credit that to the disciplines that they've had. I think that's a refreshing thought, even though we all know we need to, listening to someone else that's done it and been there, come back and say foundation, discipline, timing. It's a reinforcing thing that I've got to also continually pay attention to that. It's not a one-off.
Yeah.
One day of success doesn't guarantee you a great life.
Yeah.
You wake up every day and you choose to do the right things so that you can continue to be successful.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Vikas. If you want to listen to some great conversations that will help you run your business, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to us now.